So sings my soul. Praise my God of love and life. So sings my soul. The joy.
This is a beautiful world we live in. Do you know that? Oh, there is that power in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. And we all use it differently. We all use it as best we can. And when we are using it as good as we can, we're taking 100% responsibility for it. My subject this morning is act as if you are 100% responsible for your life. Is that possible? Do you want to do that? Is it necessary to do that? You know, we come into this world and we spend a little time here. And while we're early in our life, it doesn't seem like the time will ever end. It never gets to a point where you say, this is the moment. This is the moment. Because it seems like there's the next hour and the next hour and the next minute and so on the next day, and it goes on forever. And suddenly you get to an age like my age, don't ask. And you say to yourself, wait a second now, you know, whatever the time was, it's going to be far less than it used to be, yes? But it's not anything to be afraid of. The thing about life is that we are here with an amazing gift. The gift of experience, the gift of growth, the gift of relationship, and all of this, for it to be really experienced at the highest level, all of this needs to have our commitment 100%, as much as we can. When we think about the readings of the scripture that we heard, we just don't have time to put all the readings here, but if you go to Genesis 3, you will see that little suggestion in it, more than a suggestion really. It's a time when the God of the garden, now understand, every tribe of people in the ancient times had their relationship with God. And each tribe think that their God is the only right God. And the Hebrews are no different. And that's our tradition. So we just take it for granted that all the other people are wrong and we're right. But it's really not so. It's just different cultural ways of relating to a power that is divine and sacred and greater than we are. And every group has its story. We're people of the story, people of the book in terms of the Hebrew and the Christians and the Islamic. We're the people of the book. And these stories are there to not only give you something on the surface, but to the deeper listener, as you mature into your greatest expression of who you are, you will find that hidden depth in these stories. When Jesus gave his stories, he called them parables. And we know that there's a surface meaning and there is a deeper meaning. But when we call some stories myth, people think that you're just little made-up things, a little lie. So we start out Genesis 2 with the creation myth of Adam and Eve and the garden and the serpent. And we see that they have tasted the forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And they're evicted from the garden. And so the two readings that you have here are readings of what happens now with evolution of the human journey. The woman will have childbirth, and there will be pain. And the man is going to have to earn his way by the sweat of his brow. And when we hear these stories, we lean on this awful conclusion by Augustine that this is about original sin. And so we buy into the idea of original sin. The Jews never had any idea of original sin. But later on, after years of Jesus' life, Augustine, one of the great theologians, came up with the idea that, that means original sin. And we all bought in it. And so we act as if this is a reality, and it becomes a reality for us. But I want to call your attention to the deeper meaning of the story. Because the story is not about original sin. The story is about the fact that the parental authority is godlike in the human experience. And so children are expected, I should say, to be obedient to their parents. Obedience is the rule. But what happens is that as the children grow, which the story doesn't tell you any of that, they begin to understand distinctions, good from evil, right from wrong. And they begin to have their own experience of life, which is what? They're becoming mature. It's time to leave the nest. And when you think of it in a mythic way, they're evicted. The original couple is evicted from the garden. It's not an eviction, it's a graduation. When your parents allow you to leave home, you are then given the responsibility 100% for yourself. 100%. Now, you might say, well, can I have a credit card? And perhaps you get a credit card. But the idea is we're coming into maturity. And you can't come into maturity until you can make decisions, you can make choices, you have the freedom to make choices, but you also have the consequence to take care of, responsibility. And what we need to understand is this is the theme of humanity. This is the theme of life. And you will see that in every culture and every generation, the children don't know what they're doing, so they have to be obedient until they are nurtured into the ways of life, which we call principles. We learn principles so that when we leave our parents' home, there's no cell phone back in the day, where you can call and say, Mom, how you do this? Dad, how you do this? When you leave, you're out there. You're on your own. You're either going to make it or you're not going to make it. And in some regard, this is really what life is about. We are about coming into that zone of development where now we are not relating so much to our parent in a godlike manner, but we need to realize that there's a God of the universe, that we must transfer that sense of relationship from the parents to the God of the universe, which different cultures call by different names, and then we fight over the different names because we think it's different gods. But it's the same feeling. It's the same depth that we're trying to reach. And so what we need to realize is that as we move from the business of being a child, we have to become decision makers. Because the decisions we are making are defining our destiny. They are the direction of our becoming. And so if we make bad decisions, which in the Bible it would call sin, and sin comes from the Hebrew word which means missing the mark. You're on the wrong path. That's what sin originally meant. Not so much a stain on the soul, but a missing of the mark, missing of where you need to go. The good thing is, as we take responsibility and we see the consequences of what we're doing, we can change them. We can change them. And so we don't have to keep going down the wrong path. But we need to take responsibility for where our life is, regardless. But we said, well, come on, I was born in a situation where I didn't have the privilege that some people have. It doesn't matter. Where you are now is your responsibility. Where I am now is my responsibility. My responsibility means I have the ability to respond. I have the ability to respond to my circumstance. Now, if I have the ability to respond, I have the freedom to decide what my life ought to be, despite what may be the circumstances that are negative and in the way, despite who I think ought to be blamed for where I am. Because we don't have enough time to spend our time here blaming. What we need to do is to use that creativity to say, who's going to move me out from where I am to where I wish to be? And the answer is, I am. And I am has two references here. It has the reference of who you are personally, and it has the reference of the deeper inner relationship to what the ancient Jews call God, the I am. I am that which I am, Ehyeh Asher Ahyeh, or I shall be what I shall be. And so there is that dimension of realizing that you're able to turn within yourself to find a deeper factor, a deeper core of who you are, and to bring that to the fore. You begin to realize that there are principles that you can learn, as we do in the science of mind, principles that you can learn to apply that will affect your life. We'll begin to understand that as within, so without. And so the first place you want to make the change is not out there. The first place you need to make the change is in here, within yourself. And so whatever you're seeing out there, if you need to see something different, it must begin with a vision in here. And that's how changes, radical changes in the world are made. The changes must be made on the inside. But the changes don't mean God is going to do it for you. It means God is going to do it through you as you. And so when I say act as if you're 100% responsible for your life, it means act as if you understand that God has given you the freedom to be what you need to be. But now you must harness that freedom by making good decisions, by having a clear vision of what you want, and be willing to apply yourself. It is, as Ernest Holmes says, God is not going to bake the cookies except by means of you. God is not going to make the motor cars and the houses and the street. God is not going to make the traffic light. We're going to do it. But we're doing it with an inspiration of something grand within ourselves. And in that grandness, what we need to realize is that it goes further than your little I am. I see the tempting of Jesus in the wilderness as very relevant to this particular way of thinking. When Jesus was hungry and the tempter says, okay, turn these stones into bread. He said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. The shift that is happening is from the shift of just being the individual. It's all about me. To recognize that there is a bigger relationship. It's about myself and God. But the myself and God is not the end of the story. Jesus will go on to say somewhere else that how can you say you love God and hate your brother? First, love your brother, because you can't see God and you can see your brother. Love your brother whom you can see. The relationship here is we're going from I am to we are. To we are. And to begin to feel the oneness of the we are, in my opinion, is what happens to this idea of being the rugged individualist. I'm here for myself. I'm doing it for myself. When all the time, you couldn't exist by yourself. So the responsibility I'm asking you to accept is not the responsibility of growing your own wheat and making your own bread and making your own car. That's not what I mean by 100% responsibility. What I mean by 100% responsibility is to take the responsibility of what is it that you and only you can do, that God can do through you, and bring that to bear upon the way you live from moment to moment, the way you live your life. So what kind of world are we living in? We're living in a participatory world. We're not living in a world of blame. We're living in a world of love and forgiveness. We're not living in a world of learned helplessness. Learned helplessness, where you learn how to be helpless. No, we're living in a world of healing and recovery. In this journey, we're going to get wounded. But we can recover, we can heal, we can learn. And we can learn principles as we go along. We're not here to learn how to just get on by ourselves. We're here to learn how to get on through the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Because what else are we going to do if there are so many of us here and all we can do is seek to fight with each other, seek to harm each other? What kind of world would that be? Your life should not be a victimization of some force, social force. It really should be an acceptance of the dignity and freedom of human life. And you are the ones who must, for the sake of establishing that kind of freedom, that kind of openness for growth for everyone, to commit 100% to these values. Because if you don't, then who will? If not you, who? If not now, when? In the 5 unavoidable givens, we will see that everything changes and ends. That's the way experience works. We will see that things don't always go according to plan. So we have to be flexible. We have to be open to the changes that are going to take place. We will see that life is not always fair. So don't go insisting that it's not fair. Recognize that that's part of what life is. It doesn't mean that you must be unfair. It means that you realize that this is the experiential thing that we're all going through. But you're capable of it. You're capable of it because that spiritual core that is within you can be activated by your turning to it. That inner sanctuary that is within you. It's really there, ready to respond to you. We're going to learn that pain is part of life. Pain is part of life. You're not being victimized when you have pain. It is telling you something about what needs to be fixed. Whether it's a physical pain or a psychological pain, it is telling you that you need to give attention to this area so that you can begin to grow. And the fifth one is people are not loyal and loving always. So don't be so disappointed when things don't work out that way because people are not loving and loyal always. Realize that this is the medium. It's like going into water and say, oh my goodness, I didn't expect to get wet. You will get wet. That's the nature of the water. This is the nature of the human journey, the human experience. So you're living by leaving your parental home. Just like Abraham being told by God, leave your father's house and go to the land that I will show you. That's your destiny. And you don't really always know what your destiny is. That's why Abraham is going to a land not where God described. There was no Googling of where that location was. The idea is that Abraham is going to something that intuitively is moving him from the inside, which is God, of course. It's moving him from the inside. And so he will find it, as you will find what is your best life. You will find it when you know what your values are and what your goal is. Last week I told you about the Japanese psychology. Kaizen, I think is what it's called, where sometimes you don't feel like doing something that you know you ought to be doing. You want to be a writer. You don't feel like writing. You want to be a business person. You don't feel like getting out of the bed to take care of what needs to be taken care of. There's always some aspect to life that you don't feel like. And the psychology the Japanese used, which is quite ancient, is that when you can't feel it, go to purpose. Think of the greater purpose of why you are doing what you're doing. And when you're doing that, it will transport you out to the point where you start with discipline and then you develop momentum. In other words, you begin to do things in a spontaneous and automatic way where it seems like what Zen Buddhism would call effortless effort, Wu Wei, effortless effort. And suddenly you're in the dance of life again once more. Sophocles, the ancient Greek philosopher, said, "It is a painful thing to look at your own trouble and know that you yourself and no one else has made it." Now, I'm not one to say that nobody could be influential in some of the bad experiences that we have had. But once you are here, you have to own the moment. You have to own it. And you have to look at it and see, what have I done to contribute to it? And to stop doing that. And also look at what is it I can do to move away from it. Once you begin to own that moment that seems so unlike you, unfair, then you have the ability to respond. You have the ability to respond. You have the ability to do something about it. Frederick Douglass, who was so important in the freedom of Africans in America, he says, "I prayed for 20 years, but received no answer until I prayed with my legs." He took responsibility for it. Now, the 20 years, really, he was thinking that God was going to do it for him. But God was waiting to do it through him. As God is waiting to do it through you and through me. There's a power in this universe greater than you are, and you can use it, but it also is using you. You are becoming the vessel through which the good is to come into the world. You have this great gift, and you're supposed to give it. Jesus called this great gift the Good Shepherd. He takes care of the sheep. He lays down his life for his sheep. He gives himself, lays down his life might seem too literal when you said, okay, so some wild beast is there and you face the wild beast and you could be killed. Yes, it can mean that, but a deeper meaning is laying down your life means you're giving your energy. You're giving your creative energy to this life, and you're transforming it because only you can transform it the way in which you can do it. There's no one else who can do it the way you can do it. And it's up to you. Eleanor Roosevelt says, in the long run, we shape our lives and we shape ourselves. The process never ends until we die. And the choices we make are ultimately our own responsibility. These are people who have accomplished a lot. And these are insights that they have that sustain their journey that we can learn from. Albert Einstein says, man must cease attributing his problems to his environment and learn again to exercise his will, his personal responsibility. Einstein. You know, here's a man who was coming from a group that the Nazis just was trying to wipe out thoroughly. And what he's saying here, you're not just looking back at all the bad things, but you must seize the moment to put good things out there that will eradicate the things you don't want, not just to repeat the things like that. Jack Canfield said, event plus response equals outcome. So whatever the event of your life is, it is your response that is going to change the outcome. Your response. So if like Frederick Douglass, your response is to, okay, I can do something about this. I can make speeches. I can stand up for what I think is right. And it's not always about that, but it can also be about that. Then I can make a difference in this life. My friends, when we talk about 100% responsibility, you do it every day breathing. You do it every day eating. You do it every day being alive. What I'm saying is incorporate that into your thinking, to your consciousness, and begin to take on more responsibility for the outcome of your life. Don't let people tell you that the situation is going to do. You know, it's no different from one lady asking me to sign off for her so she can get some religious exemption to not taking the COVID vaccine. I'm not doing that. I'm taking the vaccine. I'm taking the vaccine. It's no different from getting oxygen when you need it in the hospital. You know, don't walk around and say, well, God is going to protect me. God is protecting you. That's why we have the vaccine. God is working through these things. I'm going to wear the mask as I go along with people. I'm going to do that. And we'll do that as long as we need to do it. We're doing these things for each other. We're not just protecting ourselves. We're protecting each other. We need to do what we need to do until we need to stop doing it. And that's part of what it is. Don't run around saying, well, you know, there's a whole group of ministers that went to a convention when in the early days of COVID last year before last. And they were warned, you cannot congregate. No, God will protect us. A whole bunch of them died off. So what I'm saying to you, let's not be stupid. Let us realize that we have a responsibility. God is working through us. but not if we act stupid. Stupid is sinful. That's what stupid is. Sinful. So let us realize that we can do a number of things. We can use our freedom to choose our future. We can accept the responsibility for our choices. We can know that what happens to me depends on how I respond to what's going on. We can know, as Carl Jung said, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. What I choose to become. What do you choose to become? How are you going to do this? And we must know that there's a creative spirit in us, willing, able to do the work with you. So we're going from a I am kind of person to a we are kind of person. To realize that we are in this thing together. We are here to accept 100% responsibility for what my life is and what our life is. And when we're through doing that, we will say, I got this one. God bless you. Thank you very much. This is our sharing time, and we're going to get our ushers coming in, and Miss Jennifer coming up.
If you'll please stand and join us for the doxology.
And Father, Mother God, how wonderful it is that we are here today to hear a word that will touch our hearts and transform our lives. To be better people in this world, not only for ourselves, but for the entire world. We're living in a universe that is celebrating because we have moved into a higher awareness of who we are and what we are. And so we come to our sacred place, our sacred spot, Founders, and we support it. And so right now, we bless the gift and we bless the giver. And we dedicate the gift to the truth that set us free. And so it is. Glad you're all here in church today. Hope you've experienced something that is meaningful to you and get you back on your path and moving through despite all these challenges. Let's not be discouraged. Know that you're on your path. And know that the change you desire is already coming about. Already coming about. So let's turn within, feeling that freedom, feeling that sense of being able to respond to my life right where I am. To know that there is a power in this universe and a presence in this universe we call God. This power belongs to no one because it belongs to everyone. In this little tiny mote of dust we call Earth, in this vast universe, is a sacred presence that lives, moves, and has its being in and through every iota, every far-flung star and planet and galaxy in this universe of ours. And here we are, in the consciousness of God. The writer of Genesis called it the image and likeness of God. And if we have this image and likeness, should we not be able to transform our lives from where we are to where we wish to be? Don't we have this creativity that Jesus spoke of when he says, if you have the faith of a mustard seed and say to this mountain, be cast into the sea, and do not doubt it will be done. And we know that the image here is not for actual mountains, but the mountainous obstacles that we have accepted as our limitation that need not be true. And today we melt it all back into the nothingness from which it came. Whether it's the mountain of ill health, the mountain of lack of funds, the mountain of poor relationships, whatever it is, let us know right now that speaking the word, that this power now flows in and through us, creatively, wonderfully, making new music, giving us a newer rhythm, and helping us to experience the freedom to choose, to decide, to make things better. This is what we're accepting as the truth about ourselves right now. I bless the board and the members' willingness to meet that will take place today. I bless you all for your presence here. And I know here we begin seeding the growth for the future, and knowing that all is well with the world. And I give thanks now, and let the people join with me in saying, and so it is. Please stand for the benediction. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace, the peace that passes all understanding. And so it is.